Hey guys, today I'm going to be giving an update on the motor mounts I've been making for the updates to Nebula V2. Here's an image of the old motor mount on top versus the new motor mount. The main thing of note is that I slimmed down the motor mount and elongated it to fit larger motors. So the new motor mount fits 2812, which is the old motor, up to a 3526. The way I'm constructing these is by using a 3D printed mold to do the composite work. So for the mold, it's just 3D printed, and I had some issues with some holes forming, so I filled it with some expanding foam and sanded it down. Um, After sanding down the expanded foam, I add a layer of epoxy to the surface to smooth it out and reinforce the surface so that the plastic doesn't deform from repeated use, just to try to extend the life of the mold a bit. After the first layer of epoxy, some of the larger gaps were still there, so I went ahead and did a layer of wood putty to fill all the larger gaps and smooth it out a bit more. After that, I sanded down the wood putty and then added a second layer of epoxy to give it a stronger surface and hopefully just extend the life so I can do repeated motor mounts out of this. So in the end, it's a layer of 3D printed material, the epoxy, the wood fill, and another layer of epoxy. So the first test of this, I just did a single layer of carbon fiber, some 160 gram per square meter twill. That's clamped together in the motor mount mold, and then put into a food dehydrator for curing. The outer surface came out pretty alright. There are some areas that could be wetted more, but the seams along the outer edges were curled in on themselves and resulted in a pretty bad end product. Anywhere along the outer edges was pretty stiff, but along that center line there's just so much deformation that is pretty weak. So for the next test piece, I went ahead and 3D printed the shell for the motor mount, and I'm planning on using this as a plug for the inside of the mold. This will help me line up everything and cut out the areas that need to be cut out from the end carbon fiber product. For this test piece with the shell, I also ended up doing the carbon fiber layer like last time, but then also included a layer of plain weave fiberglass on the inside for extra rigidity. On this piece, I also ended up leaving the carbon fiber overhanging more than on the previous test piece, and this was so that hopefully it would press outside of the mold instead of getting pushed in when I put the two mold pieces together. Just like with the other piece, I just used some clamps to clamp the mold together and then placed inside the food dehydrator to cure overnight. To clean up the whole motor mount, after I trimmed off as much as I could with the scissors, I ended up going at it with a Dremel and a regular sized cutting blade to trim down the excess on the outside, and then also to cut out the hatch from the top to put in the electronics in the motor. Even with the internal plug for the mold, there ended up being pieces that still squeezed in when I put the two molds together, and some of the carbon fiber ended up getting pushed down and not conforming to the outer mold. So to try to take care of this, I put some of the wood fill putty around the entire outside and then sanded it down to the shape of the motor mount. This adds a lot of weight, so I'm planning on just scrapping this one and doing another attempt at the motor mount. One of the key things I did to decrease the frontal signature of the motor mount was removing the cross bracket used to mount the motor. The motor just mounts directly to the front of the motor mount. In the next few shots you can see some of the more egregious defects caused by the shell getting pressed in. Here you can see the carbon fiber folded over itself. And here, where the motor screws in, all the carbon fiber ended up getting cracked away whenever I filled it in. And here's some more folding of the carbon fiber up where the hatch was. And here there's just a complete void where the shell pulled away from the carbon fiber inside of the mold. So for the next attempt, I redesigned the shell to be thicker and then added some ribs throughout to increase the stiffness, especially in the back where it folded up over itself a lot. Thanks for watching, everyone. Sorry for the lack of content. I was hoping to be further along, but life's been pretty busy the last few months, especially with work. But again, thanks for watching.